I have no idea how many days until my deadline. I'm looking at my calendar, and my calendar's for December, and it's still technically November, so I don't know. Hey guys! Welcome to my cozy productive writing vlog, where I record daily, upload weekly, showcasing all the frustrations and setbacks and occasional breakthroughs of my writing process. I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. So right now I am working on my latest project, Dark Witch Rising. My elevator pitch has been practical magic meets Stranger Things, and right now this story is in the final stages. I'm basically in the last 30 days of this project before I have to hand it off to my editor. So this has been written, this has been edited, it's gone through 4 drafts to get to this point, and right now what I'm doing is I'm just polishing it basically at this point. I had gone through some beta reader feedback previously, and several of them made some very good points that I'm trying to incorporate into the story. One beta reader called them scream at the TV moments, like things that had to progress because of plot, but didn't make any sense about why the character was making a certain decision. So that's what I'm doing right now. I have completely rewritten the prologue, and chapter 1 again. And I you know what? I can't remember how many times I've rewritten chapter 1 now. It just keeps going over and over in revisions, and I feel like I've finally settled on to maybe not the final version, because I'm sure there's going to be changes that are going to have to be made with my editor, but I feel like it's in the final version of it, if that makes sense. Like, yes, I'm going to have to make some changes to it to massage it into place where it really needs to be and really help the story along, but I finally feel like chapter 1 hits all the points I wanted to hit and sets the tone for the story. So that's a good thing. So right now I'm currently on chapter 5. I hope to blow through a lot of these chapters, adding in bits, because I changed the tone in chapter 1 and the prologue. There are some pieces that just need to be changed a tiny little bit. Like, for example, there's a character, Henry, and he was originally in chapter 1, but it always felt really awkward. I was never really happy with it, so I took him out of chapter 1 in this final revision, put him in the prologue instead to set up some other things. So our main character, whose name is Kate, never really meets Henry, and that is the biggest repercussion that I've discovered since rewriting chapter 1, excuse me. So there are some pieces that, like, it's kind of like throwing a stone into a lake and there's little ripples that go out. I just need to address these little ripples and make sure they're hitting the appropriate points in the rest of the story, and just making sure all the decisions are carried out. I don't have any weird copy and paste moments where I'm repeating the same thing, or I forget that, oh, she never met Henry, so she doesn't have these feelings about this character. She doesn't have a preconceived notion of what he's like, that sort of thing. So that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm heading, and I guess let's get to work. Hey guys. So yesterday, let's talk about yesterday. Yesterday it wasn't really hard. It felt really abbreviated. I know I said my plans were I was working on chapter 5, and I was hoping to blow through several chapters, but it just turned out to be working on chapter 5. Like, for my whole scheduled writing time, I was just working on chapter 5. And it feels kind of disheartening saying that now, because I had this a really ambitious goal just to keep moving and get through several chapters, but all I did was finish chapter 5. There is a reason for that, of course. When one of the things I needed to change in chapter 5, one of my beta readers' scream at the TV moment was where my two characters, Kate and Chris, were refusing a ride from one of the neighbors. Now, the setting is it's dark, there's thunder rumbling, it's going to rain. And because of plot, these two characters need to walk up the hill because something's going to basically catch them and chase them in the middle of this walk. But it seemed like the most natural thing in the world for the neighbor to say, "Do you guys want to ride?" Because that's the nice thing to do because it's dark and it's going to rain. And my character said no. So my beta reader scream at the TV moment was, why? Like, that is the most irrational decision ever. So that was one of the things I was working on fixing in chapter 5, is giving them a reason about why they didn't want to take a ride. The way I opted to go was I had my main character, Kate, say no, and the character Chris say yes, because he's a very, very logical person, and our main character, Kate, is more running on emotion at that point. But the most natural way for her to say no was to say, no, my grandma's house is literally up the road. It'll take me 5 minutes or less to get there. And that seemed great while I was writing. It's like, yes, like that, it really was like the most natural way to do it because that was her grandmother's house and she grew up on the hill. She knows it like the back of her hand. But then it dawned on me after I had written that the character Chris didn't know who she was. She was kind of, not intentionally, but maybe a little bit intentionally, like not saying that she was basically the witch's granddaughter. And his family are witch hunters, so he clearly has a bias against witches. So she doesn't know that backstory about him, but she was kind of withholding from saying that she was the witch's granddaughter just because there's bad blood with everybody and she doesn't know who she's talking to, so she kind of keeps things close to the chest. So when she says that, it sparks something in the Chris character. So in the walk, an argument brews up, and that's where things really change. I had to cut out maybe the last 1,000 words of chapter 5, rewrite it. I had to take some pieces from chapter 7 where the argument originally took place and bring them over to chapter 5 and fit them in and make everything work together, and it just took longer than I expected. So today I need to work on chapter 6, which is going to be mostly Henry, changes with the character Henry. Now, Henry, I gave him not a different motivation, but I aimed his motivation slightly differently. Like, he was going in this direction, now he's slightly going in this direction. But it does change the way, some of the words he says, and it changes the way he chooses some of his actions. So, chapter 6 is going to take some rework. Now, thankfully, the later chapters with Henry and the later chapters with Kate need less massaging. But in the beginning here, where I'm setting up and laying out the character motivations and why they're doing what they're doing, this is taking a little bit more than, I don't know, I expected to take a while, but I didn't expect it to take quite this long. I was hoping I would get through it all in one day, and see how that went. Hey guys, welcome to Wednesday. Today has been, I don't know, just setbacks and setbacks. I am still working on chapter 8. I was working on chapter 8 yesterday. I've spent my entire morning working on chapter 8 so far. Chapter 8 it's the beginning of Act 2, so it's after the world's set up and we're moving on to the major plot. And I guess I had forgotten how much setup was actually in chapter 8 for the Tad part of the story. So we've got Tad, Henry, and Simone all finally coming together, and then off to work they go like the seven dwarves. But this was where a lot of Henry's motivation changed. Or not, his motivation didn't change because it changed in an earlier chapter, but this is where the reader sees some of his motivations, some of his fears, and it just is leading to a lot of little tiny rewrites. And I had just forgotten about how much setup was in it. So every time I think I'm done and I'm skimming through, I'm like, oh, there's another piece that needs to be changed. And I think it might just be something with my mind today, but I'm having a hard time of thinking about what is going to go in the spots where I'm changing. Like, the things I'm writing just seem really blasé and boring, so I gotta delete them and rewrite them to a more dynamic, moving the plot forward. And I don't know, I'm having trouble with it today, which is unfortunate. I feel like I'm in the final crunch of like the last 30 days of my deadline, and I really can't afford to have any down days. So it's just plugging away and hoping I finish in time. I don't know, that's where I am. It's a Wednesday. Why do Wednesdays always suck? Hey guys, so it's actually 5 o'clock on a Sunday. I didn't get that much work done on Thursday and then again on Friday. Thursday, again, my kid's birthday. The day basically just went to hell. And then it's kind of the same thing on Friday. Friday was a half day at school, so I had to pick the kids up at like, I don't know, 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. So just, I don't know, writing time just didn't really happen. So I'm trying to work on chapter 8 right now, and I don't know if it's just the end of a really crazy weekend or if it's just procrastination, writer's block. I don't know what you want to call it, but chapter 8 just feels like it's falling apart. So, I changed Henry's motivation. He's slightly aimed in that different direction, and I've been going through and kind of just changing the way the words come out of his mouth. Like, maybe he's angrier about some things than he was before. He's more of an involved participant rather than just an observer, which sometimes it felt like that's who he was in the previous versions of the novel. So I'm just going through it and I'm changing. It just feels like little stuff, but he's talking with my other character, Simone, right now. And this is where I wanted to inject some small town politics, like just giving the reader a glimpse of what's going on in this very small town, in this very small group of witches, and all of Henry's complaints about it. And it is just snowballing out of control. I can't seem to rein it in because he keeps bringing up other points, and it never seems like a good point to transition into the next section of the story, which means basically they get into the truck, they go to the pit, they start investigating this open hellhole basically. I just can't seem to get out of this pit I've dug myself, if you don't mind turn phrase. I don't know what to do. I'm running into my deadline. It's officially, Jesus, I'm in the 20s now until my deadline. I'm on chapter 8. It feels like I think it's the first chapter in Act 2. And I don't know. I'm feeling very disheartened and overwhelmed and frustrated with myself that I can't move past this stupid conversation. And some part of me says that I just need to sleep on it and get a fresh start, but I don't really have that this month. That's the problem. December is a really crappy month for me. I mean, it's a wonderful month. I mean, both my kids were born in it. It's Christmas, it's holidays, it's getting together with the families, but all of that stuff just cuts into the amount of time I have to write. Like, take next week, for example. Next week, both Monday and Friday are half days for my kids. I have to pick them up before noon, both of those days. So that leaves me with 3 days that I have good writing time. And I still have to do grocery shopping. It was just my son's birthday. I now have to weed out his room and go through all his toys. And I just don't know where I'm going to find the time to get all this in. I'm feeling very, I don't know, chaotic all over the place. Like I don't know what to focus on and concentrate and do first. So while I do want to say that maybe just a good sleep and get my head in the right space is going to work, it feels like this entire month is going to feel like this. And there's like no ending, no peace in sight until after Christmas break and the kids are at school. And the book is supposed to be already at the editors at that point. You know what? At some point, I just need to stop rambling and say, thanks for watching, folks. I'm glad you got this far, and I'll see you next week.